Oh, there we go. It's using... Do you know how to get Blender on Steam? Cheese. Hello everyone, by the way. For free. It should be free on Steam. If you just go to the Steam workshop page for Blender, it should be there. And it'll be the... excuse me. It'll be the latest version, so it'll be 2.93 LTS. But just go to the Steam... search Steam Store for Blender, and it'll pop up, and then you just download it via Steam. And yes, for free. You shouldn't cost you anything. Why? Who's asking, Mike? I wouldn't tell you even if I were. Right, so this is just a short, quick stream just to get everything back up and running because they keep changing everything. Yes, it's rude to ask a lady her marital status, Mike, just in case you didn't know. So this is just a quick stream just to get everything back up and running because they keep changing the settings and whatnot. So now with Restream you can actually stream directly to YouTube, which you couldn't do before because you had to do some running around and roundabout stuff, but they seem to have fixed it. Anyway, so IMVU, last stream we were just looking at how you can use Vertex Colours. Oh. Ah, it is crashed. No, I'm not going to somewhat close. Yeah, it does that. It'll crash. It's because it doesn't always do it, ordinarily do it. It just does it whenever it has a propensity to crash whenever you are streaming and using the app. So it's not Blender's fault. Did I open the right one? No, I think I opened the wrong one. Well, there's actually 4, I think. No, there's more than 3. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Because when you are the fountain of knowledge for all things Blender, you have to have various different versions because different people are using different versions for different reasons. So for IMVU, for example, making content for IMVU, there are still people that use 2.79b, and there are still people that even use 2.49. So in order to provide support for people that are still using those older versions, you have to have them. But yes, that's one of the advantages of Blender. You can download the zip. Make sure you always download the zip file. If you download the zip archive version, you can run multiple instances of Blender. If you download the exe or the MSI version, I think it is now, if you download the MSI version, it'll override whatever version you had previously installed. So if you want to run multiple versions, download the zip file. So where were we? Oh yes, right, so IMVU, and what we were looking at in the previous stream is how we can use Vertex Colours. You made a Blender animation. In which version of Blender? We were using looking at using vertex colours to paint something like this cloud, which is a very tricky shape to UV map. So instead what we've done is just applied 2.9. So what we've done is just applied a flat texture to it, and in IMVU what we do is we enable vertex colors and we allow the vertex colors to shade the mesh and color the mesh rather than relying on a texture, which again for an object like this is quite difficult to UV unwrap and provide a cloud texture for, given the limitations that we have to work within. But what we can do to show that, so at the moment the sky why is that there like that? Oh, the sky is just using the blue diffuse color. It doesn't have an image assigned to it. So what we can do is tint it not for making content, possibly, Mike. Yes, for content production. So using Blender to make content for Unity and other development kits. Yes, there are some Unity videos available, or some videos for Unity, but it'll just be content orientated. So how you make content, how you optimize it, and things like that. It won't be about the programming or putting things together. That's beyond my skill range at the moment. Just going to create a new texture. Whoops. Just going to make this white. So just a white image, or it will be. Yeah, there are quite a few game development suites available now, so doing tutorials for all of them is, as you can imagine, quite a task. So only stick to one or two. So Vertex Paint, and we're going to paint this blue. If it'll let me. The tools are a bit finicky. Oh, there we go. Let's bump that up to full strength. Oh, there we go. That's what we needed to do. Let's enable wireframe. Makes it easier to see where we're supposed to be painting the color. So this is vertex painting, not texture painting. We'll do it from the outside. Let's make that double-sided. Oh, I see. Well, don't, just because you can make a bridge with 3,000 polygons, cheese, doesn't necessarily mean you need to. You should always be working with optimization in mind, using as few polygons as you possibly can to get the shape that you want. Because the 1,500 polygons that you may have that are extra will always come in handy somewhere else. So don't over-egg the pudding just because you can, or just because you like pudding. Cubes? What are you making a bridge with cubes for? That's 3,000. Pick or it didn't happen. Right, so we've vertex painted that. Just a quick vertex color. Object mode. And of course we can't see. Just need to close some things because the computer's starting to scale up. Need more computer. Right, so we can't see vertex painting in any of the texture modes. We can only see it whilst vertex paint is actually active, which is a bit of a pain in the butt. But so that's the UV map, so we can just save this image, save as. Could have sworn we've done, no we haven't, so let's just do clouds, sky PNG. Thanks for dropping by, Cheese, nice to meet you. Targa raw, don't need it to be RGBA. Save as image, and that drops it into the shader, so it's now part of the shader. And we should be able to export this to IMVU as we did before. Just fix the camera. They should be aligned. Alright, let's just save this, save as. And export. So select everything. Select skeleton.room. So that's the active object. And file, export, FBX. Selected objects. Geometry. Apply modifiers, that's all right. Always disable add leaf bones, and we don't need any bake animations, so disable that. and then export. So let's get this into IMVU. This is Studio Beta. Oh, and the new update at time of streaming, we've got our information panel. So our user panel on the side with our user and some stats, various links to different things. So that's useful. Right, so create rooms and furniture, rooms, example 3D scene, derive, so we're just going to replace this backdrop, import FBX, so we can either click on the little icon or file, file, import FBX. So we're clicking on the hamburger file and then import FBX. So we want rooms, browse to, number 9. So it's going through the import process. So this is a preview of what's in the file. So this is the FBX we're importing. Setup FBX. If you're using Blender and starter files, we always have to set the scale. This should always be 0.01. So we want skeleton.room, 16 bones, 2 meshes. That's all right. Clouds.mesh. Oh, right, that's right, because we've got 2 separate meshes. So we've got the sky and the actual clouds. So that's all right. Import. Those are the textures. Next. No animation review. So that's what it's going to bring in. And then import. So it should automatically assemble the project. So it's brought in, all the bits. Oh, and it's automatically placed some default seat nodes because it hasn't used the ones that are in the file, which is fine for now. But, so what we have are in component our materials. We need to set these up correctly so that we actually replace both of the default materials that are in the, unless what we can do actually is we should be able to, that's sky. I don't know if it actually, I'll get rid of that one. Yeah, it will. Remove. So let's name this properly. So Sky Warm. So it's renamed. We've got rid of that extra material. But anyway, that's beside the point. So we've got some flat textures, and all we need to do is select our material, either one, and we want use Vertex Color. And that enables vertex coloring on the cloud, and then on the sky it should turn this all blue. Why hasn't it turned it blue? That should be blue. Not quite sure why it's doing that. Let's try. Oh, the joys of using Studio when it's still in beta. Okay, so let's try this a different way. Because what it should be doing is turning the, because we've just used a white image, what we should be seeing is the vertex colouring coming through underneath the mesh, essentially, or mixing with the... So let's create a new texture. So we just need this to be white. Could be something to do with removing that material that we got rid of. Although I'm not quite sure why it would do that. So another one. Just export these. Let's get these remapped in Blender. So we're going to, in shading, just going to select our mesh and just remap the image. So we've got some bitmaps that we want to reassign or assign to these materials that we've just created earlier. So click on the folder icon. That'll give us the browser. This is for sky. And that's all it is, just as simple as that. Select the mesh, it selects the appropriate material. Clouds. So that's now white as well. So if we switch to, just check. Oh, it's not saved our vertex colours for some reason. Has on the mesh, but not on the clouds, rather, but not on the sky. That would explain why it's not tinted. Most annoying. Okay, so let's do that again. Vertex paint. Select the mesh. Vertex paint. Oh, it is there. That's very weird. Let's just try mixing up the colours a little bit. It could just be that it's because it's just one colour that we used. Okay, so that's painted. Object mode. Yeah, it's a shame that we can't see the vertex colouring or vertex painting when we're in any of the other modes. So save. So the vertex colouring is there. We can check that. Object properties. No, it's object data properties. So in object data properties, we should have an entry in Vertex Colours. So we've got COL. That means that there's a colour map associated with each of these mesh objects. Clouds.mesh, sky.mesh, that's okay. So export again. Select all. Shift click skeleton.room. File, export FBX. Selected objects. That's okay, that's all right. Modifiers, disable, export. So let's see if it's worked this time. Whoops. What we can do is import over the top of the one that we've got open already. So just click on the icon and import FBX and just reload the file. So that's our FBX. Open. Oh, you know what we forgot to do? Set up the materials properly. Cloud 0, sky 1. So those are the numbers. Those are needed for IMVU because it gets the name of the material from the number, not the label or the word. So in this case it's sky. And what that allows you to do is you can use the same label, which is sky in this case. You can use that multiple times, but so long as the number is different. So if you had 6 versions of the sky texture or 6 instances, so long as each instance had its own unique number, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, you could use the same label on all your materials. So make sure that you add the numerical reference, or is that append to the label, whatever you've got your material labeled as. And you don't need to join your objects. they can be separate objects for FBX. So let's just save over the top, re-export. So select all, shift click, export FBX 9. That's all right. That's okay. That's all right. Export. So that's saved over the top. And again, FBX import. So we'll get the process, and again, that's an overview. Setup, scale 0.01. Skeleton, no skeleton, 46 bones, 6 meshes. So it's, I'm not quite sure, 16 bones. Oh, we don't have any furniture items, that's why. So where's the furniture? Oh, they're not connected, that's fine. So how many is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, there's more than 16 bones there. So we've included there are actually 8 meshes. Why is it giving us 6? "16 bones, 2 meshes." Let's go with 47 just to see what that... Oh, there we go. Oh. It's not linking. Oh, that's why. So we don't have the seating set up yet, so we can hide those. Right, let's do that again. So we don't have no blocks, no seating, room mesh, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's weird. That's not giving me the same. Let's do this again. So, although FBX is pretty versatile in terms of allowing you to export partially completed projects, unlike you can do with Cal3D. So although it allows you to export partially completed projects, projects do still have to be set up to work properly, or they have to be set up, what's the word? They have to be set up relative to IMVU, or what IMVU is expecting, in order for them to work. So that's all right. Export. Let's try this again. Import FBX number 9. Oh, okay, that's different. So skeletons, right. There we go. 0.01. So now we've just got... So you have to be mindful of what you're exporting when you are exporting your projects. Because if you, as we just did, or as was just been done, if you import or export projects with things that are not properly connected, so to test your, this is for rooms particularly, but to test your, oh, nice cheese. So to test your room, click skeleton.room, press the G key, and just move that node. And whatever is connected to it will move with that node. So everything that's not moving, you can just hide temporarily and then export your scene. And that way you'll only be including what's actually set up to work with the room. So clouds and mesh, clouds and sky rather, scale 0.01. Whoops. So those are our two meshes. Next. Alright, so it's got our new PNG images that we created. Next. No animations, review. So that's what it's bringing in. And there are the renamed materials. Import. So it's got the cloud color, but it still hasn't brought in the vertex coloring from the sky. And it should be. Because that's all the cloud is. It's just that one. Whoops, select the mesh. So that's all the cloud is. It's just vertex painted. So I'm not quite sure why the sky isn't coming through. Have to submit a bug report, I guess. But that is very weird. But if that fails, all you need to do is just import an image that you've tinted a particular color. And just apply that to your mesh. And for something like this, where you've just got a flat object, you don't necessarily need to do anything fancy. Right, so let me just try this again actually. Don't save. I'm going to completely get rid of that. So create a project, example scene, derive. Import FBX. There's the FBX. Oh, the 2D app, that's Affinity. Affinity Photo. Zero 1. Skeleton, that's fine. Next. Supporting our images. Next. Review. Import. Oh, it is there. The head. Oh, and it's done the. So let's just try this first. Use Vertex Colours. Okay, so it's something to do with removing this material that's a leftover, a remnant. This should be removed because this is... Let's just double check that. Derive. Okay, so this is going to be material 0 and this will be material 1. Whoops. So that's 0 and that's 1. So ordinarily, when we import our materials with our numerical appends, it should override the defaults. So that's 0, that's 1. So that's 0 and that's 1, but for some reason it keeps the default or the original in place and we can't get rid of it. So let's see if we can swap this around. Sky any chain. Let's just see if we can get rid of this. Get rid of the default. That's the one we imported rather. So we're overriding the default with the one that we imported. Preview. Oh, and that's working now. Use Vertex Colours. So there we go, Vertex Colours. So it must have been something to do with overriding or importing over the top of the old, well, the previous iteration. So it's probably, brainstorming, it's probably another cache. It's not clearing the cache properly. So that's a similar problem to Classic. Classic Editor has the same issue, that sometimes when you import a project, get it all set up, if you re-import something into that project, it doesn't properly update and you have to close that project and rebuild it. So that does work, but so this is a lot of mucking about just to show how you can use Vertex Colours, Vertex Painting, to paint your mesh, to tint your mesh, where you might not otherwise be able to do with textures, because we're limited to 256 by 256. So we've just got white images for both of these. Let's just pin that, move it, pin that. So both of those are white images, but we're using Vertex Colours to tint the mesh. So that was a lot of faffing around to do that. But to answer your question, Albert, head maker for Blender, if you mean making what you'll need, if you mean making, where is it? If you mean making an actual head, you'll need to use the head starter files. Well, you'll need to use the clothing starter file to make an actual mesh head, or let me just drop a link to that. You need to use, if you're talking about making a face animation or a face morph, you use the morph file. So we've got the avatar starter file pack, so that includes, if you're making a head, female clothing or male clothing, or if you're talking about making a facial animation, a morph, we use the shape key files, male and female. So download that file and you'll find in there is the shape key or the clothing file. And you'll need to use those for the respective bits that you're trying to make, because if you try and do it with something else, it'll not work. Because IMVU uses a very peculiar setup that means that in Blender we have to use an equally peculiar setup to compensate for IMVU's peculiarities. So there you go. Everything's peculiar all around. Right, so that's all this was. It was supposed to be just a quick stream just to show how we can use Vertex Colours. But all this fiddling around, I think I'll swap those colours around actually, so we have dark blue at the top, pale blue at the bottom. But that's how you use Vertex Colours. So you don't necessarily need to do anything complex with your meshes in terms of how they are textured, because all we've done is assigned white images. In fact, you could probably tint. So even though, yes, you could actually do this. So here's a tip. So let's say you wanted to tint. So we've got dark blue at the bottom down here, and we've got light blue at the top here. What you could do, depending, well actually it relies on the fact that you're going to have your UV map like this. So the entire mesh is mapped to one image. So the image is stretched across the entirety of the mesh. So you're using the default UV map that's generated by Blender. But what this means is that what we can do is, instead of using color, if we switch to Vertex Paint, what we can do is use grayscale tones. Let's just make sure that that's, yeah. What we can do is grayscale this. So we are creating artificial tinting. So light at the top. Let's just quickly do dark at the bottom. So dark grey at the bottom. Like so. Then you export your mesh, as we have been doing, but what you then can do is assign a different coloured image, just a flat colour, it doesn't need to be fancy. So instead of white, you could make this blue or green or yellow or whatever colour you want, but a flat colour, so it's one tone across the entire image, because when you assign it to your mesh, what it'll then do is use the grayscale vertex tinting to darken or lighten the color depending on how you've got your vertex colors assigned. So that's just a cheap way of, sorry Young, I don't understand. If you can translate that into English, I might be able to answer you. So you can use vertex coloring to tint a single color image. So that's another alternative use for vertex painting. So it can be quite versatile when you think about using it. But Young, as you had XMF in there, I'm guessing you've got an issue with your XMF file. So if you're importing an XMF file into Studio, I have to use import asset, and it'll ask you for a specific, as it's doing here, XMF, XRF, SF, AF, PF. And the import process is slightly different for those. Let's see if we can do a quick translate on that. Right, okay. Brazilian fans. So Young is basically asking, wanted to learn how to export to IMVU using Blender, I assume, because they can't find XMF. You don't use XMF, just use FBX. Let's just translate this back. Whoops. Ooh. Hi, you Joss. You just kind of dropped in right at the very end. This was only supposed to be a short stream today. Just testing everything to make sure it's all working properly. But we were just talking about vertex colors and how we can use vertex painting to tint our meshes instead of worrying about textures, painting textures. I've got an FBX tutorial somewhere. Where is it? There we go. Young, have a read through that. Use the translator on the page and you should be able to translate it. Right, we'll call it quits there. This was only meant to be a quick stream just to get everything up and running. So, thanks for stopping by. Cheese in particular. Mike. Who else? Albert or Albert, Young, and Ujos. or UGOS. Hopefully this, well, I don't know about it being regular. I mean, relative to other streamers, it won't be regular, but hopefully this will be the start of getting back into streaming after a bit of an absence. So we shall call it quits there, and we shall see you on the next stream. Yes, you just missed it, Eddies. But thanks for dropping by. You can watch the archive. It'll be archived. The streams are all archived, so you can watch that. Right, so call it quits there, and we shall see you on the next stream. So thanks for stopping by, everyone, and cheerio for now.